Use fair use. I'm reserving all of my rights in this video that I am using in reference with my video is going to be for educational purposes only. And it will not be for any other intent other than that. It won't be for any type of legal or to pretend like I'm a lawyer or something of that nature. It's nothing like that. It's going to be simply educational purposes under the guise and the guidelines of being an investigative journalist in regards to various topics that involve our life. So fair use. But what I want to talk about is this situation we're dealing with here where they're trying to take the guns from everybody and all of the shit show bullshit that's going on in regards to how it's being handled, and particularly all of these different lawsuits that they have filed. So this guy here, Greg Bishop, is a radio disc jockey for one of those news radio stations. And he's been covering this. And I felt like I would use this video because he's been pretty much what I could say on top of like what's been going on. He reports some very accurate stuff. And he does that continuously. So I kind of trust some of the stuff that he's saying because I know that he gives updates almost immediately. And it can be stuff that you can go behind his back and verify that is actually so. So without further ado, I want to get into this and I want you guys to see this whole shit show that is happening in regards to them trying to take the guns from the people here in Illinois. But I'm not going to give too much commentary now because I want to get into it. I probably won't play the whole 9 minutes and 10 seconds, but I do want you guys to hear a good deal of it so you can kind of understand wherever you may be in the country as to what is going on. Because if we have a negative outcome in regards to this, then it could affect the entire country. So let's get into this.
About the Northern District court case where a gun store out of Naperville sued Naperville, but also sued the state of Illinois and lost that case in the circuit courts that is now at the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, where the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals yesterday, if you take a look at the...
Really quick, this Naperville case that he's talking about, this shit kicked off before they even put the assault weapons ban in place in January. A suburb of Chicago called Naperville passed a bullshit statute banning assault weapons in Naperville and only in Naperville. So they have been fighting that for quite some time now in regards to that. And this was long before they actually started doing this whole thing with Pritzker. This was long before that. You know what I'm saying? And that's the Naperville case that he's talking about in regards to that. So the Naperville township or village or whatever, I don't even know. I would have to go and look and see what it's defined as. But they enacted their own little bullshit statute. It's like really like an ordinance. That's what it came across to me because it's like, wait a minute, it's only in Naperville? Get the fuck out of here. Who the fuck does this? You know what I'm saying? But they passed that bullshit. They passed it. So I'm gonna let you guys hear the rest of that, but that was important. I needed to point that out to you guys because they did this shit before J.B. Pritzker put the damn ban into effect in January. So I just thought that was kind of important.
The track here of the docket for the appeals court, you can see how it plays out. And yesterday they did have the motion for injunction pending appeal and the order that was issued. And it's real short. It's 2 pages. Kind of gives you, the case that it is and what all the different things have happened before the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. And then you get that, the plaintiff's motion to have a preliminary injunction pending appeal. And that was denied. So that's what's happening in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. That's federal. All right, so that's the federal stuff. Those are the federal cases. 7th Circuit Court of Appeals is over the Northern District of Illinois. It's also over the Southern District of Illinois federal court. Now, this is the trajectory to go to the U.S. Supreme Court eventually. But when you move your focus from federal court to state court, That's where you get some other happenings yesterday. So we all know about the cases that have been filed in state courts. If not, let me refresh you. All right. So some of the first cases that were filed were in state court. Actually, the first case that was filed, just to confuse you, because why not? It gets very Kafka-esque. The first case was actually out of Crawford County, filed by Thomas Mag, and that was transferred from state court to federal court, and that's one of the ones that's in the Southern District of Federal Court. But then you had Thomas DeVore file multiple lawsuits, two in Effingham County, one in White County. He's got temporary restraining orders for thousands of plaintiffs in those cases that are protected from this law, the state's gun and magazine ban being enforced on them. It includes individuals. It also includes gun stores. They can, with this temporary restraining order in place, transact firearms between themselves. All right. So he's got thousands of temporary restraining orders against the state from enforcing the law on his plaintiffs. Two in Effingham County, one in White County, 3 lawsuits, thousands of plaintiffs. But the first case was the Accuracy Firearms case from attorney Thomas DeVore. When he got that temporary restraining order in state court out of Effingham County, the state then appealed that case to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals for Illinois. So Illinois' state courts also has an appellate's court before stuff gets up to the Illinois Supreme Court. So the Accuracy Firearms case cited giving a temporary restraining order to DeVore's clients. That was appealed to the Fifth Circuit by the state. The Fifth Circuit panel of judges, I think there were 3, and 2 of the 3 judges said that the case has a likelihood to succeed on its merits because it was challenging the law on the question of, does this violate equal protections by carving out law enforcement from being impacted by the law, while regular citizens question whether or not they have Second Amendment rights. So that's the question at hand in the state courts. All right. So DeVore's.
So now this is the part that I was pointing out to you guys in videos in the past. Excuse me. That the minute that judge did that, okay, well, let me back up a little bit because I want to talk about this Thomas DeVore guy. He actually has his own channel, this lawyer that he's talking about, Thomas DeVore. And I've checked out a couple of his videos too, but you should be able to Google his name and it should be able to come up, wherever you at. His last name is in the title of this video, DeVore. So his first name is Thomas. But the last video that Thomas put out, right? He said it was 7,000 people. 7. Now, if I'm mistaken, I apologize, Mr. DeVore, but if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn that's what you said. 7,000 people is protected under this based on the grounds of equal protection, where their argument to how he even got the temporary injunction to begin with, he used the argument of, well, you can't just carve out certain other people and just leave everybody else out to dry. And that judge agreed. He agreed with that. That's why he said this case plans to succeed on his merits, meaning what he's arguing. That is unconstitutional. You can't do that. You can't say, well, so-called white people get to have assault weapons, but so-called Hispanics can't. You can't do that shit. And that's what he was arguing. The judge agreed with him. So for these XYZ thousands of plaintiffs, people that he filed on behalf of, they're protected, as well as whatever gun stores that was involved in that. Because it wasn't just individual citizens that make up these several thousand. It's also business owners, motherfuckers who got gun stores and shit. They're also protected. The point that I have been trying to make all along is that the minute that judge did that shit, that everything was supposed to backed up. Everything. But see, the problem of the matter, and this is just my opinion before we move forward, that was on the state level. Had that been done on the federal level, then there's a chance that they probably would have did it for everybody. But I want to let him continue to talk, though. Listen to this.
Case goes to the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit says, it looks like this case does have a likelihood of succeeding on its merits. That set a precedent in the Fifth Circuit, where you then had the Macon County case from State Representative Dan Calkins filed, and a judge there, using the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, issued a final judgment in the Macon County case, essentially saying that, it's unconstitutional. So the state has to bypass the Fifth Circuit because the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals for the state has already ruled, and this could advance based on the merits. So they went right to the Illinois Supreme Court. We've talked a lot about that case in particular, the question.
So the way it works is like this. With that state court judge, when he ruled that it was unconstitutional, I don't know about in any other state, you know what I'm saying, but in Illinois, under law, it automatically goes to the Illinois Supreme Court. Automatically. If they pass any type of legislation and somebody come out and fight that shit in court in Illinois and a judge deem it to be unconstitutional, a state court judge, not the federal court, but a state court judge, any state court judge in the state of Illinois, if they deem new legislation that was enacted into so-called law, even though we know it's not law, if somebody come out swinging and they challenge that in court and a judge deem it unconstitutional, it automatically goes to the Illinois Supreme Court. It don't matter if the plaintiff or the defendant wanted to or not. It does not matter. It automatically goes there. So again, we right back to the point to where that should have been temporary injunction statewide. Here it is. The state is the motherfucker that came up with this nonsense. You dig? You had a state court judge like, man, this shit is unconstitutional. Get this shit out of here. Automatically, that should have halted everything. But it didn't. The only fucking people that's protected by this bullshit is the so-called, like I said, I could have sworn Thomas DeVore, the last video he put out, he said it was 7,000 people. And that includes business owners that is protected by this. Anybody else can get jagged from this shit. They could right now. You know what I'm saying? Because the whole registration thing about you registering ARs and all this other shit, that started in October. The magazine thing, the high capacity magazine, you being able to convert a standard magazine into a higher capacity magazine, all that shit is in effect now. You get popped off with that shit, they talking about fining you and all kind of bullshit. You can fuck around, go to jail, the whole 9 yards right now for the magazine ban. You see what I'm saying? See, the problem of the matter is that it's still not enough people in this country, whether if it's in Illinois or wherever, that don't understand that they get to do the shit that they do and then cause the drama with tying this shit up in court because they think they own you. But anyway, continue.
Of judicial ethics that have been raised, even officially, the Calkins attorney, Jerry Stocks, filing a motion for 2 Supreme Court justices for the state of Illinois to recuse themselves for taking $1 million in campaign contributions before they were elected by a chief defendant in the case, Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, those 2 justices denied that recusal motion. We've covered that as well. But you also know...
Of course they denied the recusal motion. Of course they did. It'll make them look guilty.
Have a different order that was issued by the Illinois Supreme Court in divorce cases. So, again, 4 different cases, 3 from Tom DeVore, 1 from Dan Calkins. The Dan Calkins case is in the Illinois Supreme Court. They're going to hear it in mid-May. The entire panel, those 2 justices decided not to recuse themselves. That's the Calkins case in the Supreme Court. The 3 cases that DeVore had, he wanted to consolidate all 4, but instead the Supreme Court said, no, we're going to take the Calkins case. The 3 DeVore cases can stay together. So the states had an appeal of one of the DeVore cases, the Accuracy Firearms case, and they were appealing that. But to the Illinois Supreme Court, they filed a motion for abeyance to essentially say, no, we're going to hold DeVore's case, the proceedings on the appeals, we're going to hold the case in abeyance until they decide what happens with the Calkins case. So they're essentially pausing the appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court per the request from the state. Now, from my understanding, DeVore's case, where he's looking for all kinds of discovery, that's still going on, and he anticipates a May 4th hearing to go through the discovery and get documents he says he needs as part of his process in building a case against the state's gun ban. That includes not just communications with legislative leaders, but it also includes communications from the Illinois Sheriff's Association and the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and what they were saying about all of this. So whether or not a judge grants DeVore's motion to have these entities turn over information as part of the litigation, that is still yet to be seen. But when it comes to the state's efforts to have DeVore's case in front of the Illinois Supreme Court on appeal, that's been put into abeyance. And you can track this yourself through the Supreme Court's website. And, they got it open where you can Google Illinois Supreme Court, check it out, and then hit high-profile cases. There you can see Supreme Court high-profile cases. And if you go down, you see the Calkins case and the latest there, and you can also read the motions and the orders for recusal and the denial of recusals. But then you see the accuracy firearms case here in the Illinois Supreme Court, and you can track that as well. And the most recent there being the order regarding a motion by petitioners to hold the petition to leave to appeal in abeyance. So if you read that, it just simply says that, they grant that pending the outcome of whatever happens with the Calkins case. So it's hereby ordered by the Illinois Supreme Court to hold petition for leave to appeal in abeyance, meaning they're going to hold the appeal in place. They're not going to do anything with it until the disposition of the Calkins v. Pritzker case. So that order is to allow for that abeyance. So that's kind of the latest in the state level cases. Again, the most recent being that order that the Supreme Court issued in the accuracy firearms case, granting the state's motion to hold their appeal of DeVore's case to the Illinois Supreme Court until the Calkins case is determined. So we'll see what happens there. But apparently you do have, the question of how the Illinois Supreme Court's outcome could impact the DeVore case moving forward. And what happens if you got to the circuit court and federal court in the Southern District saying that the law is unconstitutional? Well, it would probably block the law from being in place while all these appeals play out in both state and federal court. So we're all getting our junior law degree here. Just joking. You're not really. I'm not an attorney, and I don't.
So at the end of the day, this is also part of that order out of chaos thing that I was talking about. Okay? Because at the end of the day, it's too much shit going on for this to not be just the drama alone. Automatically, there should be a temporary injunction. Automatically. Then keep this in mind too. Keep this in mind. They are still working on the case for the no cash bail in Illinois. The fucking... Listen to me, man. The Supreme Court put a temporary injunction in place for that. They still working on that. They was like, nah, we can't move forward with this shit until we figure out like what's, and this shit right here that they doing with the assault weapons ban, this is just as dramatic, it's just as confusion, it's just as much crap as the no cash bail. And you got just as many entities and shit that's fighting this as the no cash bail. You got state prosecutors all over the state like, what are y'all doing? The county sheriffs and shit filed a joint in federal court. It's like, and you mean to tell me you still want to move forward with this? They want to take everybody pow-pows, man. I'm telling you, that's what it is. They want to take everybody click-clacks. Straight up. This is Richard Longwood, man. I can't put it no clearer than this. You know what I'm saying? And like what he said at the end of it, he was like, well, what if one of the federal courts ruled that it's unconstitutional? Then that will probably put a temporary injunction on it, until they got everything settled, right? Which is true. It could, right? Why they, it will go to an appeal, because you look at it from this perspective, if a federal court, because they have not done that yet. The only stupid ass federal judge was the one that was presiding over the Naperville case that said that the shit is constitutional. You know what I'm saying? But since this whole thing has been going on, since the damn bullshit has been in place since January, no judge has done that. You know what I'm saying? From the attacks that's coming from Pritzker, because the Pritzker is being attacked. Everybody's filing lawsuits against this shit. The thing with Naperville, like I told y'all, that happened prior. They had already did that. Once they did that, they start suing Naperville. You see what I'm saying? Naperville did this before January. They literally was like, you can't, we banning that shit. You can't sell them here. You can't own them here. The whole 9 yards. And everybody's like, you out of your fucking mind. And they started filing lawsuits against Naperville immediately. And then after that, we get into January of this year, Pritzker do the shit that he did. You dig? So since that time, all of the lawsuits that's against Pritzker, there ain't been no federal judge that has ruled it unconstitutional, because more than likely they would probably issue a temporary injunction because Pritzker would appeal that shit. Him and Kwame Raoul punk ass, right? 9 times out of 10 that would happen. But here's the kicker. They could have did that when the state judge did it. When the state judge did that, and it automatically went up to the Illinois Supreme Court with Dan Calkins, right? They could have put a temporary injunction in place then. You see what I'm saying? You see the games? See the games that they playing? Then look at it from another perspective. They sit up here, they rule the assault weapons ban constitutional, and they rule the no cash bail shit unconstitutional, meaning the no cash bail shit go forward. That shit go forward, but then they want to rule that the assault weapons ban is constitutional. Could you imagine that shit playing out like that? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because I see ignorant, wicked, stupid shit like that happening. You know what I'm saying? That's just me. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I cannot stress this enough. This is going to have dire consequences for the other 49 states. I'm telling you, if this shit go down negatively, this shit will affect Alaska. I'm telling you. When you look at all of these false flag shootings and all this other stuff, and I've been telling y'all since my first channel, you hear me talk about PSYOPs, you hear me talk about false flags, and I always tell you, just because it was a PSYOP, just because it was a false flag, that don't mean nobody wasn't affected. It does not mean somebody didn't get killed, hurt, maimed, raped, robbed, or pillaged. It don't mean it didn't happen because it was a PSYOP or a false flag. It just mean the jargon they gave you, the damn garbage they fed you was just that. It was garbage. It was a lie. So in other words, like how I said, look, to give you an example, we know the Twin Towers came down. The PSYOP was what they told us as to how it came down. You done ran these fucking light-ass planes into this building, and there ain't no trace of wings, fuselage, nothing. And then you finding motherfucking passports on the ground at ground zero, untouched, clean as a baby's ass. Amidst all this rubble, get the fuck out of here. Who you think you talking to? What do I like, an idiot to you? You got a plane that crashed in the middle of fucking nowhere, and all you got for me is a hole in the ground. That's it. And I'm supposed to believe a fucking plane crashed right here? Really? This is boots on the ground photos you showing me, right? Of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, right? This is boots on the ground pictures you giving me? This is right after the accident? Well, where in the fuck is the plane? Where the fuck is the plane? Get the fuck out of here, man. Planes have crashed since then, and you still see wreckage. But not in this case, okay? The Pentagon. Anybody ever been to Washington, D.C.? I've been to the Pentagon. Now, I ain't never been inside it, but I've been there. There ain't nowhere in hell you look. Listen, understand this. I ain't never been on a plane. Straight up in my life. But I've been in front of the Pentagon before, and I'm telling you here and now, there's nowhere in hell you can. I live on the other side of O'Hare Airport right now. I can stand outside right now and watch planes shoot up in the air, watch them descend, the whole 9 yards. And I'm telling you, here and now, man, ain't no motherfucking way in hell no plane ran into the motherfucking Pentagon. You got a better plane. You got a better chance of them driving a plane up your ass than you do with them actually successfully crashing the plane to the Pentagon. So again, that's the example that I'm trying to give you. Now, was the Pentagon damaged? Yeah. Hell yeah, it was damaged. But it wasn't from no motherfucking plane. Wait. I'm going to say this and I'm going to get out of here. Let's not forget the infamous Tower 7. Oh, what are you talking about, Longwood? Tower 7? Ain't no Tower 7. The fuck out of here, ain't no tower. Yes, it is. There was a building called Tower 7, and this motherfucker came down and nothing touched it. And it came down the exact same way the Twin Towers came down. And it's like, you mean to tell me that some motherfucking tzatziki eating ass, camel riding motherfuckers did this? You got me fucked up. I'm not honoring that. You telling me some fucking camel jockeys did this? Bullshit. The motherfuckers who made pita bread famous, they did this? You got me fucked up. This original Lone Wolf, man, that shit was a psyop. It don't mean them buildings didn't come down, because they did. I stood in front of the Twin Towers before this shit ever happened. Back in 95, 96 and shit, when I was out there in New York doing my traveling and all that shit, I stood in front of them. I know what the Twin Towers look like in person. Personally. Right? And I'm telling you, ain't no fucking planes ran into the buildings. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, man. It's just that motherfucking simple. There's nowhere in hell with the way New York is constructed that shit is possible. There's no way. I done been on the George Washington Bridge and shit, coming out of Jersey and shit, going past the Jet Stadium and the Giant Stadium and shit, coming into New York and shit over that big ass bridge. And I'm telling you, there's nowhere in hell. Anybody who know about New York, who been there, lived there, whatever, understand what I'm saying to you. It's not fucking possible for you to fly fucking planes into a building like that. But yet the buildings came down anyway. They just didn't come down the way they told you. The shit they told you was bullshit. And that's your psyop. It's Original Lone Wolf, man. I'm out.